So evictions are out of control right now. I mean, I think that's probably the number one call that I'm seeing right now is folks that have questions about evictions. And a lot of these people aren't even there anymore. They're not even residing there. They left, but they're still now getting like formal notices, and then of course they're getting collection notices on the leases that they did not fulfill. So I wanted to do a quick video about the evictions right now, what's going on in Georgia. I had done a video last year about the eviction process in Georgia when we were dealing with state and federal protections. Those pretty much are all gone. And so, life is coming back semi-normal. And we are starting to see now lawsuits are happening all the time, and so are evictions. And so what do you need to know if you have an eviction? And is bankruptcy, is that an option that you want to look at? I just want to do an update. So unfortunately, a lot of folks, because of the pandemic, were forced to either leave their residence, or they just couldn't pay and they were in forbearance. But unfortunately, a lot of these local programs did not distribute the funds the way they were supposed to. So you have landlords who do depend on this money as well, not getting paid. And so at the end of the day, you are responsible for your lease or the payments that you didn't make. So if you're looking at an eviction in Georgia, let's talk about if you want to stay or if you've already left. So if you've already left and you've gotten this notice that, hey, you broke your lease, this is what you owe, you may want to look at a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Because if you ignore this, then what happens is this then turns into a lawsuit, a collection lawsuit, and it's valid. I know I talked to some folks who are like, yeah, but the government was supposed to pay this, or the state or whatever, and most people, most of the time it didn't happen. And so if you do get a notice, about this, you can, of course, respond to the person that's trying to collect and ask them to verify if they received any government or state funds to pay to pay these arrears. So at least you'll have something in writing. But I can tell you, because I talked to a lot of landlords too, a lot of people that are in this business are actually filing bankruptcy because they didn't receive their tenants' rent. But if you do owe it and they didn't receive any money, then that's a valid lawsuit, and you're going to get sued, and then they're going to get a garnishment, and then with that garnishment, they're going to garnish your wages. They can freeze your bank account, and one thing that amazes me is right now it's bad for a lot of folks. Obviously, coming out of we're almost 3 years into the pandemic, things are getting a little bit better, but a lot of people have just really suffered. What I don't understand though is, if things are so bad and folks have had to not pay bills and break leases and whatnot, if you wait until you build yourself back up, you may make too much money or have too much in assets to file a Chapter 7 by the time you get sued for this broken lease. And you really need to keep that, you need to consider that. Now, if you think, what, I might be in a place next year where I can just pay this off, cool. That's great. But some people are looking at leases that, they lived there for like a year. Some people almost 2 years with not paying their rent. So that's a lot of money. So if you think you're going to come into all that money pretty soon, great. Just don't file bankruptcy. Just pay it. Pay your bill when it comes due. But if you're not in that position and you're getting this notice, you really may want to look at filing a Chapter 7 bankruptcy to where at least, when you're getting sued, you have, you're going to have a lawsuit that'll eventually come. That's all going to mess up your credit. Sometimes people are like, well, I didn't want to file right away because it's going to mess up my credit. You're talking about apples and oranges, and that always amazes me. People cling to the credit thing, and it's like your credit's already pretty jacked up at this point. And then when you start rebuilding it, and that's what amazes me, they're like, well, I'm not going to file because I don't want to do that to my credit, but I'm just going to build my credit up, and then I get sued, and then I get a garnishment, my credit goes right back down. So for a lot of people, they are prolonging it. But if you are getting sued for a balance, and even if you're not there, you really may want to look at doing a Chapter 7 so you can get a fresh start. Just clean all this up, get rid of it, move on with your life. And I have a ton of videos on my channel about Chapter 7. I've got a couple of links in the description as well, but you may want to check that out. Now let's talk about if you want to keep your location, either your apartment or the home that you're renting. Couple of things you gotta look at. How long do you have left on the lease? Because most landlords, even if we can file a bankruptcy and we can stop an eviction. So yes, we can totally do that. But what bankruptcy cannot do is we cannot force your landlord to re-sign you into another contract. Okay. So if maybe you have, maybe you're in a 2-year contract and you're only in like 6 months of it. Cool. We can file the bankruptcy, and then we can take whatever you got behind on your lease and we can schedule a repayment plan, and you can stay the remainder of your lease. But if you're somebody that you've only got like 3 months left in your lease, Chapter 13, probably not what you want to file, because chances are they're gonna kick you out anyway. So you might want to consider, and I realize evictions are very, very, very stressful, and it's scary, right? They're going to put you out on the street. Well, here's the thing. When you see people that have all their stuff put out on the street, they've gotten a lot of notices. So they've just ignored them. And it is sad to see that. When you see all the stuff literally on the side of the road, that is what they do. They've had like a ton of notices and they've just ignored them. So if you are facing a dispossessory, what you want to do is, the very first thing you want to do is you need to respond to the dispossessory. And when I say respond to the dispossessory, I'm not talking about you call your landlord and say, hey, look, let me try. No. If they filed a dispossessory, you have to file a response in the court where they have filed the dispossessory against you. Because if you don't do that, and you need to read your little notice, it'll tell you how long you have. If you do not do that, then they win by default. And that's it. Then the next notice you're going to get is telling you have to vacate. So you need to respond. A lot of times, I think at most courts right now, they still have, you can even respond online. So you can go online and to the court and fill out your response and at least file it that way, so that, okay, you've responded, then they're going to set a court date. And if by that time you've not worked something out with your landlord, then at that point, you need to, say, okay, well, is there enough left on my lease where I can file a Chapter 13 and stop the eviction, and then I can try to get everything together, and then by the end of the lease, you have to move, but at least you've been able to stabilize the situation. If that's not what your plan is, then attend your court hearing. Again, most of these court hearings are even, they're still doing them by Zoom. So I know a lot of them aren't even in person yet. So, it shouldn't be that much time out of your day if we're talking about where you live. It's kind of important. So file a response, you get a court date, show up. And some people, they're like, look, I'm going to move. I just need 2 weeks. I've got, whatever your reason is, you can ask the court. And a lot of times what they'll do is they'll say, okay, well, we're going to agree, the parties are going to agree that you are out by this date. And if you're not out by this date, then they come and put you out by this date. But you can get some time that way. But you have to be proactive, and you have to respond to the dispossessory, and you have to show up. Now, if you file a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, Chapter 13 bankruptcy is a debt consolidation repayment plan. So it will allow us to take whatever you got behind on, and usually the reasonable period of repayment that our courts go by is we have to be able to repay what you got behind on over the remainder of your lease. That's kind of the measuring stick. So that's something we can talk with you about in more detail if you are interested in staying in your location. If you're just trying to buy time, and I will tell you this, even if you file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, so some folks, they know that they're gonna owe on their broken lease and all this stuff. But even if you file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, it'll stop the dispossessory momentarily. Usually after 30 days, they'll file their motion and they'll start it back. But either bankruptcy will stop a dispossessory, Chapter 7 momentarily. But I always tell people, if this is something, you've got going on, talk with a bankruptcy attorney. For us, we've been doing this over 20 years. It's all we do. I deal with a lot of folks with eviction issues, especially now. We're seeing so many right now. And it is what it is, but we're seeing this more so than we ever have. Give us a call. The consultations are free, and we can at least give you some options. I'm a big fan of checklists, as I think I mentioned in most of my videos. And I actually, if you go onto the link down here, I have an eviction checklist of what to do, if you're facing an eviction, at least here in Georgia. So I definitely invite you to click on it, get a free copy. And we're always happy to do free consultations. Most of the time, you're going to be meeting with me. We make it really easy. You just you can literally click on my calendar, schedule a time, and we can either talk on the phone or we can do a video chat. Super easy. So anyway, if you have any questions about bankruptcy, evictions here in Georgia, I'm always happy to answer questions.